Just testing the stream, testing the stream, testing the stream. Okay. Can you hear me? All right, 8 a.m. Bangkok time. Man, I've already been up for a few hours. Hopefully you are feeling relaxed. And last time I talked, I had a little problem with my microphone and my video and all that. So hopefully you can see and hear me now. Also, Alex is on the line, and we're pretty excited to bring to you some talk. We'll talk a little bit about careers in finance, but also, as we've been doing, talking about some different things related to investing, strategy, things like that. So there's so much going on. You know, one of the big things that's going on, I'll just talk about a couple of things before we really get started, but let's have an espresso first, huh? Before we get really deeply into it, you know, the topic that I think is interesting right now is something I say, you know, I love the saying, trees don't grow to the sky. So what does that mean? Well, that basically means that things that you think are going up may go up for a while, but then at some point they won't anymore. And there's oftentimes no warning. It just goes that way. Every single time that markets, stocks, anything like that goes up, eventually it starts to come down. And so I love this one. You can, I'm going to write it just to remember it. Trees don't grow to the sky. So something that really helps me to kind of remember that things won't last forever. And the thing that I'm thinking about right now is the tech companies. Everybody's been buying tech companies. They've been seeing all of the positive news, the profits, the fact that tech companies have done really well in this crisis and all that. So tech companies are an area that I've been kind of looking at and wondering, you know, are they at any risk? Well, how could they be at risk? I mean, they're great companies. They're run by innovative people. They have a lot of cash. They're making good money in this crisis. So what's the risk? Do you see any risk? Well, I see some risks, and I'm going to talk about those risks in just a bit. But I think the main thing that I'd like to say about also something that I've learned from my years of investing, and that is that basically what you can say about investing is it's very hard to predict the future. In fact, my academic research has really proven that analysts are terrible at predicting the future. But what I can say is that very few people know where they are right now. Very few people know where they are right now. And if we can understand where we are in the cycle right now, that can provide us with a lot of value. I'd like to tell you a story before we get started. We'll just have a little fun and wait for others to come on the line. But, you know, I like to say that if you were to go to London, as an example, and you were going to see your friend, and you flew into London, you got in a cab, you got out somewhere, and then you called your friend and you said, hey, I want to come and see you. And your friend says, awesome, I can't wait to see you. And your friend says, you know, this is my address. All right, so you're talking to your friend, and then you ask your friend, how do I get there? And the friend says, well, where are you right now? And you say, well, I don't know. I don't really see anything, but never mind. Just tell me how to get there. And you go through this for a little bit, and your friend just says, well, don't you see anything? No, I can't really see anything. But why is it so important about where I am? Just tell me how to get there. Well, of course, you can't tell people how to get somewhere if you don't know where you are. Otherwise, there's no starting point. So it's the same thing with investing. I think it's much more important to know where you are in the cycle of profits, in the cycle of valuation, and those types of things. And when you know those types of things about where you are, it gives you a lot of value so that you really can think about it carefully. And I think that's what I want to talk about a little bit about where is tech right now? Where is tech right now? So let me share my screen. I'm going to open up my PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through a couple of things in the PowerPoint. So hold on one second. Let's open this up. Careers in finance. And I'm going to share my screen. All right. So can you see the screen? The screen says careers in finance. Now, what am I going to talk about? Well, today I'm here to answer any questions that you have, but I always think it's fun to talk about some hot topic in finance. So we will do that. But if you have any questions, put them in the chat now. Questions about investing, questions about careers in finance, anything like that. I just had one of my valuation masterclass students. We had a conference call over the weekend. He's a module 3 student. And my student asked me, I want to become a financial analyst, but I study to be an engineer. What can I do? I can map out the exact path that you want to go to do that. So anyways, if you've got any question, just put it in there. Questions about investing or anything. So today I'm going to talk about this lesson. I say trees don't grow to the sky. I'll tell you a little bit about my story and then some Q&A for any questions that you ask. And then I'll talk to you about how you can become a valuation expert. So today's section comes from my new course called Finance Made Ridiculously Simple. So this is something I've been working on a lot. And so this is a course that, in fact, I've just been revising, making it better and better. I've had my first group of students go through it and give some feedback. I'm really excited to bring it out there. And this course is incorporated. An important thing is in the Valuation Masterclass Module 1. So you'll get this for free if you sign up for Module 1, which is crazy because that's already a $197 value. All right, so threats to tech. That's what we're going to talk about. First of all, Trump has sent the regulators after the tech sector. What does that mean? They're also you're going to learn about the idea that they're earning monopoly profits, and that they could end up being split. If Trump is president, then there could be a Republican and Democrat Facebook. And if Democrats win, they could just make them break up. So let's take a look at that. So first of all, with Trump, there's no way, this is what he says. Trump said, there's no way that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. So he's kind of making a prediction there. But what you get is you get that thing that I highlighted in yellow there. Actually, Alex highlighted that in yellow. Get the facts about mail-in ballots. So basically, Twitter fact-checked Trump. And here's Trump saying, here's the fact check. Trump makes unsubstantiated claim that mail-in ballots will lead to voter fraud. So he's making a claim or a prediction. And they're saying, well, we have evidence that that's not going to be the case. All right. Well, in America, censoring the president of the United States or any politician in that case, the important thing about a democracy is that the politicians, the president and the Congress, let's say, whether that's a parliament or whether that's a House of Representatives and a Senate or the House of Lords, these people are the ultimate representatives of the people. Therefore, they must be protected to some extent and allowed to have an absolutely free voice, or else if they can't have a voice, how could the people have a voice? So it's a very slippery slope when anybody tries to censor any particular politician. Now, of course, you can say, well, Twitter's a private company, they have policies. Yes, but you can also argue that they've reached a level where actually they are a utility or a platform for reaching the masses. If Trump was to be cut off from Twitter, for instance, it could seriously hamper his way of reaching his followers. So now he's saying, so here's basically what he's saying is that Twitter is stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen. So Republicans feel that social media platforms totally silence conservative voices. We will strongly regulate or close them down before we can ever allow this to happen. We saw what they attempted to do and failed in 2016. We can't let a more sophisticated version of that happen. Twitter has now shown that everything we have been saying about them and their compatriots is correct. Big action to follow. So what, he's basically complaining, that, and I wouldn't think that anybody would argue that the media tends to be more biased towards the liberal side, and that's where something like, let's say, Fox News came up because they said, well, we're an antidote to that. But here's some of the action that Trump then took. Trump signed an executive order taking direct aim at the social media companies. Now, this was signed on May 29th, so that's basically about a month ago. And the idea is that he wants to get regulators going after them. And part of it is that the social media platforms got some amnesty, or they got some freedom from prosecution because they were viewed as a neutral platform where people would bring their speech onto the platform, and therefore these guys had some exemption on the basis of free speech. But if they start to exclude voices onto that platform, then they should no longer be applicable, or this idea should no longer be applicable. And so that's part of what he's talking about. So now it's time to dig more deeply into infotech. Now look at these charts. Look at these charts. All right. So this is a study that I did. It's a bottom-up analysis of 5,400. Cheetah, look at these charts. So then we break out the infotech sector. And here you can see that there's 6 big tech companies. What are they? Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, and Alibaba. So what I've done here is I've looked at the net profit margin of tech, which is the blue line, and infotech, and these big tech companies, which is the green line. And then, of course, all companies, excluding real estate and financials, is the red line. So you can see that the red line's net profit margin is about 6%. The infotech sector in general is almost at 15% net profit margin, and the big 6 companies are at 20% net profit margin. That is massive, and that's part of the reason why these stocks have been on fire. Now, let's look at this then. Let's look at a re-rating that's been happening in the price to book. So I'm going to look at price to book here for a moment, and what you can see is that the red line is all companies. I exclude real estate and financials. And then the dotted line, I said, well, let's remove infotech so we're not comparing it against itself. So I've removed infotech, and now I've said, okay, what does infotech look like? That's the blue line relative to all other companies. And the gap is massive. We're talking about 8 times price to book for the infotech companies versus about 3.5 or so for the non-infotech companies. But if we look at the big 6, we're talking about almost 10 times price to book. So there's a huge gap and a huge re-rating that's happened there. Now, you saw the profit margins were very high. So, you could argue that, well, it's justified. I'm not arguing that it's not justified, but I just want you to remember, trees don't grow to the sky. Now, here we see the price to PE. I didn't strip out the tech companies from the red line. So we can see that the PE is about 35 for the big infotech, as well as just infotech in general versus 30. So there's less of a re-rating here. Now, what I next want to look at is the share of revenue in the U.S. market. Now, how many stocks did I look at for this study? More than 5,000 stocks. So out of 5,000 stocks, what we can see is the big 6 companies, the big 6 tech companies account for 6% of the revenue of all 5,400 stocks. That's crazy. And what we can also see is that infotech in general now accounts for 15%. Of course, if you went back, over time, those 6 companies accounted for almost nothing 10, 15 years ago. So this is a huge level of concentration in the revenue. Now, the next one is, okay, let's look at the share of net profit. And here it gets even more amazing. Now we're seeing it's not 6% like we saw of revenue. It's 16% of profit of just 6 companies out of 5,400 companies. That's a massive consolidation of profit into, and if you look at the infotech sector, you can see 30%. That's crazy. All right, let's look at the share of the market cap. We know these stocks have risen a lot, and that's risen above where their earnings are. And so we can see market cap now is 20% in just 6 stocks. No wonder the U.S. market's been going up. Those 6 stocks account for the market cap. If we were to strip out those 6, which Alex is on the line. Alex, I think we should strip this out and have the one market cap without those 6. But the point is that if we can strip these out, as many people have done, and they've looked at the S&P without these things, we can see that actually the market's not performing that well. And infotech sector is now almost 40%. So what have you learned? Well, first, tech companies are facing big challenges with Trump sending the regulators after them. Also, it could be argued that they're earning monopoly profits, and Trump may push them to split into Republican and Democrat Facebook, or Democrats, if they get in power, they may just break them up. Now, those are some pretty amazing numbers. So if you have any questions, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and I want to talk to you for a bit about the idea of I want to talk to you just a bit about this idea of Republican and Democrat Facebook. Now, what I'm saying in this is that basically what Trump is saying is that Facebook, you'd give equal play to the Republicans as you do to the Democrats. And Facebook probably is saying, well, we already do that. But the fact is that Trump is saying you don't, and many conservative voices have said that you don't. So the end result of that is that the question is, can Facebook change to basically be completely unbiased and allow everything on their site? The only thing that they take off is something that is clearly illegal, such as, if someone was to try to put a video of a murder up there or something like that, absolutely that would come off. But otherwise, it would be uncensored in almost every aspect. Because the problem with censorship that you always face is that with censorship, you find that you basically, who's going to censor the censors? Who's going to watch the watchers that are watching? And that's why freedom of speech tends to need to be very, very free. So that's the concept that what I'm talking about. So what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that the reality is that it's very possible that Facebook cannot become unbiased. And if it cannot become unbiased, then what you have is something the way Fox News set up relative to the other news stations, because they said we need a conservative voice, and we're not getting it on CNN or MSNBC. And so now you have a polarization of the news. And I think there's a risk that starts to happen in the space of the social media. So that's some of the risks I see at the social media companies. My recommendation to clients has been basically continue to ride the social media wave, but be careful not to overweight significantly into the social media, the tech companies, because they can be at risk. If the regulators come after them to show the amount of profits that they're making, and also to come after them from a regulatory perspective from Trump. And even worse, now you have the advertisers on YouTube, as an example, and Facebook saying we're not going to advertise there anymore. Now they're coming from probably a different angle than Trump. Trump's saying we're not going to give you a free platform because you're not giving Republicans a fair shake. And the companies are on the other side saying you are putting up Republican or conservative voices that are not right, and therefore we're not going to publish on your platform because we don't want our ads being up against something that we disagree with. So you really have a split going on, and I think it's an important thing to look at. Anyways, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the thing. I'm going to go back to the presentation here for a moment, and let's go back and see what we've got. Now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to just talk about for any questions. Now we've got a few questions that have come in. How do we determine the best method of valuing a stock? Oh, that's a tough question. I would say in my experience, there really is no best method. First of all, I like free cash flow because it helps me understand the company very well. I understand the core profit that the company's generating, and I understand the amount of investment the company has to make to achieve my forecast. That's what most people miss. Most people make a profit forecast, a revenue forecast, but they forget the fact that there is asset investment that must be made to have that expansion. Even if you don't have a lot of CapEx in a company, let's just take my own coffee business. If we are going to expand our revenue, let's say double it, we're going to probably have to double the amount of green coffee that's on the floor. That inventory is working capital. We're also probably going to end up doubling our accounts receivable because we're selling to the same customers or new ones, but probably on the same credit terms. So all of a sudden, inventory and accounts receivables have risen. Now, you can say that we have spontaneous liabilities on the other side that are expanding, but they're never going to expand to the degree that the inventories and the accounts receivables are expanding to, because these are being booked at a value-added level that's much higher than the raw material that's coming into any business. Raw material is coming in at a low price, and you're converting it into a finished goods. You've added cost to it, so already it's going to be at a higher price. But then when you sell it, ultimately, and then you convert that into an accounts receivable, you could be selling it at 30, 40, 50, 60% higher. So your accounts receivable are always going to be above your accounts payable. Now, that's something that I talk a lot about in the Finance Made Ridiculously Simple, which is included in the Valuation Masterclass. So if you sign up for that today, you'll get the access to that, which is already a $200 deal. All right. Now, someone said, here's the question. I struggle with achieving the goals I set. How can I become more productive? Andrew, how did you accomplish so much? Well, the answer to that, there's a couple of answers to that. The first one is that I wake up very early, and I realized many years ago that you only have 4 hours a day. That's it. Now that sounds a little strange because people say, well, I have 24 hours in a day, right? But the reality is that to be successful, to be productive, what does it mean? It means that you're using your peak energy. Not very many people are productive when they're just sitting there fiddling around on the internet. But when you're productive and when you're successful and you're creating things, you have to be using your peak energy. And that peak energy maximum that you can get every day out of your body and your mind, there's physical limitations. My estimate is about 4 hours. For some people, it could be 2. If I asked you to sit down and focus for, day after day after day, could you focus for 8 hours a day? You could not. Our brains won't allow it. You don't have enough glucose and enough things to keep you focused. So if you only have 4 hours a day, the question is, what are you doing with your 4 hours? Well, you could go into work for 4 hours a day. That would be pretty cool, right? But you probably have to be at work for 8 hours a day because, old style bosses say you got to do that. But the fact is that you only have 4 hours. So how do I become productive? Mine is very simple. I wake up and I start work at 4 a.m. By 8 a.m., I have now finished my 4 hours. At 8 a.m., everybody else comes into the office. And boom, that's it. So that's how I become productive. All right. So what can I do to build my confidence when I look at how much my seniors know? I feel intimidated. When you start off in the field of finance in particular, but even as you grow, confidence is something it's difficult to get. And, a lot of people think that education will give them confidence. Yeah, a little bit. Like education to me will provide you with like a backstop. You're going to be able to apply for these jobs. You're not going to fall down so far. When I was a young guy, when I got out of high school, my parents basically said, hey, get out of the house and make it on your own. I didn't have any money. I had to go work in a factory. And the fact is I was scared. I was scared that I didn't have the money to finance my life and just to live. And so I was, scared. And basically over time, I tried to figure out, how I could build my confidence, how I could build my salary. But ultimately what I did is I went and got an education. But even after getting an education, it wasn't enough. I could go into a room and I knew the technical topics, but that doesn't necessarily build confidence. To me, confidence comes through failure and through overcoming failure and ultimately through practicing something over and over. So my most important thing that I say is whatever it is that you want to do, whether that's Excel, whether that's coding, whether that's writing, start doing it now and do it over and over and over again until it's like so simple and clear to you. All right, now I'm going to just stop sharing for just a minute and come back to my video here. So hold on. I got to learn how to flip back and forth. There I am. All right. Now, I just want to highlight that we've got a special offer, and that special offer is for the Valuation Masterclass. So I'm going to include it in there. Remember, when we talk about the Valuation Masterclass, you're going to get a lot if you buy it today. So let's go back to sharing the screen, and I'm going to walk you through that. So 1 second. All right. Whoops. That's crazy. Okay. So let's talk about, for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to become a valuation expert. And if that's what you want to do, I have exactly what you need to do that. So this is the mountain that I had to climb over the years. And basically what I learned was that I didn't have practical experience. So I put that in the Valuation Masterclass. I didn't have confidence. So I've put that in the Valuation Masterclass. I was not efficient. And I put that in. And most importantly, I didn't make an impact. And so now all of these things are built into the Valuation Masterclass. We have more than 1,500 students from 31 different countries, and it's growing. I think it's actually now 1,600. And we continue to grow. I call it the boot camp for valuation. And I say it's the complete, proven, step-by-step course to guide you from novice to valuation expert. You think I can do that? I can do that through this course. But you've got to devote the time. It is tough. Now, you start your journey with module 1, and it's focused on building a strong foundation of the basics. Later modules will bring you to mastery. So what do I mean by get practical experience in equity valuation? Well, by module 5, you'll have valued 20 companies and reviewed your peers' work on another 10. That's real practical experience. These companies are from different sectors, countries, and situations. And my one valuation masterclass student I talked to last week, and I told you about at the beginning of today's talk, he's an engineer and he wants to move into being an equity analyst. So already we know what sector he wants to work in. I've told him how he can break into it because as an engineer, he was a petroleum engineer. That means he knows about energy. That's a huge sector. And he's in Malaysia in this case. So I said, let's get you into that sector as your starting point. So in later modules of the valuation masterclass, he's in module 3, moving on to module 4. Basically, I've been able to set up a bunch of energy companies that he can work on so that it can give him practical experience. Now you'll learn how to analyze companies and write reports like a professional analyst. So what do I mean by confidence? Well, you'll gain confidence from this practical experience. And others will also feel confident when they see the depth of your financial valuation knowledge. What do I mean by efficiency? Well, the valuation masterclass, you're going to learn using my model, the value model. I've developed this model over the years and it helped me to become a #1 analyst. And that model is awesome and we're constantly improving it. We've just basically adapted the model slightly now to cover financial companies. We didn't have that in the past, but now we can do banks, insurance, and all that, which was what I originally had the model for. I originally started as a bank analyst. That was my first 10 years. So when you're more efficient, you're more competitive. So the next thing is about impact. Now you can see one of my students sent me a message on Facebook, and she said that it really boosts my confidence. Now, what do I mean by impact? It means nothing if you've done a lot of hard work, you're really smart, you got everything in place, but nobody's listening to you. You're not making an impact. So that's a key thing. And to become a certified valuation expert is hard. It's 5 modules, 200 hours of learning. And that's why I call it the boot camp for valuation. But after passing module 5, I'll do whatever I can to help you get your dream job. Why? Because if you pass module 5, I know you now have what it takes. So if you're inspired to become a valuation expert like I am, we've got a special offer if you're on this webinar right now. First, if you join today, you're going to get 25% off of module 1. And in addition, that's normally $200. So that's already a great value at $149. You're also going to get a bonus today, which is a book, 9 Valuation Mistakes and How to Avoid Them. And we'll send it to you right away by PDF. That's a $10 value for free. And $10, hey, that could buy a sandwich. That could take your girlfriend or boyfriend out to lunch. And also, we're going to give you the PDF of my book, How to Start Building Your Wealth Investing in the Stock Market. Another $10 value for free. So what do we got? Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, remember at the beginning I said that Finance Made Ridiculously Simple. It's a 9-hour course that is included here. That's a $200 value that we're adding in. So module 1, it's valued at $200. 9 Valuation Mistakes at $10. Build Your Wealth book at $10. The total offers value is $220, but actually if we throw in the Finance Made Ridiculously Simple, it's another $197. Let's say $200. That's $420 in value, and you can get that all right now for $149. Alex has included the information in the chat, so just go to it and find it out. The best part about it is it's got a 30-day guarantee, and if you're not satisfied, I'll refund you 100% because I don't need your money. My goal is to make you satisfied. So it's no questions asked guarantee. So let me now go back to any questions or anything that we've got. Let's see. Hold on. So there we are. All right. So I think that, I've summed it up today. You understand a little bit about the offer that's available, but also we talked a little bit about tech. And tech is a critical topic because if you are overweight in the tech space, you need to be thinking carefully that you could be hit from another angle. So I'm going to leave it at that point. If you've got any questions, you can leave them in the chat and you can add them even after this is done. Feel free to add any, and then I will see you on the upside.